Okay, welcome, and thank you for tuning into this talk on nutrition and cancer. I did a talk yesterday, June 15th, at the Canadian Cancer Society's Relay for Life event, specifically looking at the role of nutrition in both cancer prevention and management. It was an amazing event. A very huge thank you to all the organizers who put in so much work, and of course to all the volunteers and participants. You know, nothing but respect for everyone from survivors and all the supports. And of course, my heart goes out to those who didn't make it through the struggle with cancer. And I hope that, you know, going forward with the research and the obviously the funds that are being raised, that, you know, we're able to work towards really getting making a dent in this condition. And from what I read today, it looks like almost $15 million have been raised. That's absolutely just amazing. So just hats off to everyone, and I'm very grateful and honored to have been able to participate. So for those of you who either didn't attend or didn't get to catch the beginning of the talk, my name is LaTouche. I did my undergrad in kinesiology, study of human movement, sort of a sports science type undergraduate degree, and then I got into the wonderful world of personal training. I've been in the fitness industry for over 10 years and recently took up the studies of naturopathy, and I'll be entering my third year come September. So that's been an exciting program, and what you'll find through this talk, as well as just in general with respect to my philosophy, is that I like to come from an angle of prevention. Obviously, both with fitness and with naturopathic medicine, those are two, or that's a philosophy that's shared in both of those fields, and I feel that that will come through today, and that's the angle I'm coming from. Just as an FYI, there's a reference list at the end of today's talk, but uh, the majority of the information, if it's not exclusively referenced, is going to be from one of two books, either The Cancer Fighting Kitchen by Rebecca Katz, or Anti-Cancer by David Servin Schreiber, who's an MD and put out an amazing book. Both very, very worthwhile reads, and The Cancer Fighting Kitchen is just a must-have for any kitchen, really. It has some fantastic stuff in it. Otherwise, the information, like I said, will be referenced specifically, and a lot of the studies that I bring up were brought to my attention by my clinical nutrition professor, Dr. Philip Rokotas, who is an amazing, amazing naturopathic doctor, and he just has a wealth of knowledge. And we had an amazing lecture series on naturopathic interventions in cancer. So that's sort of where I'm getting the information from, and we'll jump into it. The two goals that I really want to accomplish through this presentation, one is to empower you. Whether you're someone that is presently diagnosed with cancer, you're a survivor, you're in the caregiving field, or you're just interested in nutrition, you know, you are an essential part of your health team, and that's first and foremost what I want to, you know, get across today. Through the information that you be given, I really hope that you are empowered to make some informed decisions. And second, of course, as I mentioned initially, we're looking at the role of nutrition, both in cancer prevention and management. Um, Forgot to give mention to Dr. Donald Abrams. A lot of the information that I cover today is also from his work. Dr. Donald Abrams is an oncologist from the University of California, San Francisco. He's doing amazing work with respect to educating patients and the general population on the role of nutrition in cancer. He's got some very cool stuff out there, and I put a link at the end of today's presentation to a talk that he did that I based this largely off of, and definitely a worthwhile watch. So he states that, you know, as a population, we're aware that smoking contributes to about 30% of avoidable malignancies, and he argues that nutrition actually contributes to an equal amount. Um, this analogy that he uses, I think, is absolutely amazing, and we'll refer back to this several times through the presentation. But he looks at cancer as being the weed, and your body is the garden. His goal, the patient's goal, is to see how you can make the soil as inhospitable as possible to the weed. And I think this is very interesting. And in the past, the majority of cancer research has really looked at just the cancer cells. And you know what? A lot of really great information has come from that. We've been able to have some huge strides in the realm of treating cancer as a result. But what's often been overlooked is the environment within the human body that these cancer cells function. So recently, studies have been looking more and more at this particular factor. What's happening to the garden, or rather to the soil, as opposed to just examining the weeds. And the reason this is important is because our inner environment can be manipulated and changed to a large degree by diet and exercise. And again, coming from a background in fitness, this is something that I've been promoting for years, and forget me, I mean, we've been aware of this for ages. So I'm excited to see the promise that is coming with research that's centered in this area now, looking more at what's happening within the body and how, what's happening within the body when someone is diagnosed with cancer. What happens when they're undergoing treatment? What happens when you manipulate their daily regimen based on diet and exercise? How is that working to slow malignant tumor growth, mitigate treatment-induced toxicity, improve quality of life, and so on? And again, the research is showing some very promising results so far. Nutrition is largely controllable. For the most part, we do have we have complete control over our nutritional habits. Nutrition can help boost energy, offset cachexia, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and reduce the risk of infection. So nutrition, I mean, intuitively, we can understand that it plays a role. But what I want to elaborate on is how nutrition can really work to maximize the quality of our soil so that our garden will flourish and not the weeds. So this was interesting, and this was brought to my attention by Dr. Phil in our clinical nutrition class. He explained to us and showed us some studies that showed that population groups, when they move from countries with low to high incidence of colorectal cancer, they actually adopt the rates of the host country. And it's interesting to see that colorectal cancer is so much higher in developed countries, and these studies and these findings are suggesting that there's a relationship between changes in diet and lifestyle habits and colorectal cancer, specifically in these developed countries. And the reason I bring this up is this is what started to, well, this is what helped push the movement forward to say, okay, well, what's going on a diet and lifestyle, going on in the realm of diet and lifestyle that's actually contributing to colorectal cancer? Besides genetics, what's happening here? And just, besides toxins and things of that nature, based on these factors, what's actually going on? Other studies looked at breast cancer and the interactions with insulin, and they found that this was taken actually from the Cancer Fighting Kitchen. Breast cancer patients who kept their insulin levels under control reduced recurrence by 50% and decreased cancer mortality by almost 70%, by 2/3, about 66%. Now, the reason I bring that up is because in order to control your insulin, a very big component is taking on positive lifestyle habits, regular exercise, and watching what you eat. And we can see that you can start to see the connection there. And again, this is what researchers and doctors were starting to see, and really started to generate the momentum behind this movement to look at, okay, well, what's going on within the body and how can that affect the onset or progression of cancer? In 2002, in the publication Nature, an article stated, recent data have expanded the concept that inflammation is a critical component of tumor progression. The reason I bring that up, inflammation is promoted with insulin, we just looked at that, refined sugar and flour, soda, fast foods, processed foods, a lot of what we come into contact with in a traditional North American diet. So again, more and more evidence, more and more support for the understanding that there is importance and value in examining what's happening within the body, and remembering that what's happening within the body can be manipulated through diet and lifestyle choices. Now, I highlighted sugar on this slide. The reason being, um, you know, I often get asked, Liam, what's the deal with sugar? Good, bad, ugly? Dr. Donald Abrams, in the presentation that I've cited at the end of this talk, used this analogy, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. I had to share it with you guys. It's okay to have sugar in the nutritional facts portion of your product. Sugar is an energy source. Our brain loves it. It's a primary fuel source for the brain. The issue is when we find sugar in the ingredients list, or things that you can't pronounce that as well. But when we have sugar in the ingredients list, that means that it is likely a refined sugar, one that, according to the study we just saw, or the statement we just saw, is related to promoting inflammation, and inflammation is related to the promotion of tumor progression. So this is what we have to be aware of. It's okay, if we see sugar in the nutritional facts portion, not so bad. Ideally, there's also some dietary fiber. This particular example of the nutrition facts cutout there is great. 11 grams of fiber, that's wonderful, and then only 6 grams of sugar. The issue is, on the example in the bottom, if we were to then see sugar in that ingredients list, that's what we want to avoid, and that's a very strong take-home message, and one that Dr. Abrams really emphasized as well. So still along the lines of the role of nutrition, and before we get into the ingredients themselves, first and foremost, understanding the value of controlling body fat percentage. And the reason I bring this up is that fat cells produce hormones that can fuel cancer, and it's also harder to detoxify these hormones with a higher body weight. So there was a review done in Clinical Oncology Journal in 2002 that looked at 39 different studies, and they wanted to see the associations between diet and breast cancer, recurrence, and survival. BMI refers to body mass index, and this is an index that gives you a rough estimate as to somebody's risk of, well, basically looks at whether, based on your height, is your weight within a range that is considered healthy, overweight, or obese, or of course underweight as well. But here we're looking at higher BMIs. These are individuals that are classified as either being overweight or obese. Now, looking at these 30 days, they found that high BMI at the time of diagnosis, overweight, obese individuals, significantly increased risk of recurrence and decreased likelihood of survival. And this was reproduced time and time again when examining these 39 different studies. The range of increased death risk went from 30 to 540%. I don't know where the 540% came from, but even looking at it conservatively and just looking at the 30% increased risk of death, that's huge. And that is from having a high BMI, being overweight or obese at the time of diagnosis with respect to breast cancer. So again, just really emphasizing the role nutrition plays, because to control our body fat, of course, exercise is vital. And as a personal trainer, I strongly believe that, but diet plays a massive, massive role here. And just as a side note, weight gain following early stage breast cancer is actually quite common. We're going to be looking in a moment at cachexia, which is seen in more serious cancers. And the reason I bring this up is, again, the relationship between controlling your body fat and the rate of recurrence or survival with breast cancer, and knowing that in early stage breast cancer there's a likelihood of actually gaining weight.